being quiet or keeping to themselves. You know that person who is always super chill, never causes drama, keeps to themselves 24/7, and probably spends all their time journaling in a corner while everyone else is throwing back tequila shots and bad decisions? Yeah, on the surface they're just introverted, but in serial killer lore, that's practically a job qualification. Just to be clear, not all quiet people are serial killers, obviously. Some people just really hate small talk and fluorescent lighting. But when someone is ultra quiet, hyper observant, and low-key keeps a mental catalog of everyone's weaknesses, yeah, that definitely looks like the start of a villain origin story. According to psychologists, serial killers often show early signs of social detachment, lack of emotional connection, or a general meh towards the human experience. They're not quiet because they're shy, but because they're calculating, watching, studying, and rehearsing that normal person mask. Take someone like Dennis Rader, aka BTK. Dude blended in like beige wallpaper. He was a church leader, family man, quiet, polite. Meanwhile, he had a murder dungeon and wrote taunting letters to the police like it was his side hustle. Obsessively clean or tidy. Have you ever met someone whose house is so clean it feels illegal to breathe in it? Like one stray fingerprint and you're expecting a SWAT team to burst in and start cleaning? Yeah, cute on the surface, but sometimes that squeaky clean obsession is not just about good hygiene, it's about control. And in some very dark cases, it's a red flag with bloodstains. Serial killers with obsessive cleaning habits aren't just neat freaks, but erasers, meticulous cleaners, crime scene vanishers. Their spotless counters and perfectly aligned remotes aren't about aesthetics, they're about eliminating evidence down to the last molecule. Think Dexter minus the conscience. The behavior often starts young, rearranging books obsessively, refolding clothes that were already folded. People would think you're so organized, meanwhile your brain is running an internal FBI lab. Every mess feels like a threat, and every stain a sign that they're slipping. But here's the thing, this doesn't mean every clean person is secretly watching murder tutorials between bleach refills. However, in serial killer psychology, obsessive cleanliness is often tied to guilt, compulsion, or an attempt to maintain total control in a life where their dark urges are anything but tidy. You know what else I heard is a behavior linked to being a serial killer? Not subscribing to our channel. So get on it before I call the cops! Thank you. Loving true crime. Okay, yes, I get it. We all love true crime. I mean, most times it's usually harmless. It scratches a curiosity itch, makes you feel prepared just in case, and gives you that sweet hit of adrenaline without the actual danger. But plot twist, this is also the exact cocktail of emotions serial killers get, just, before they act. Think about it. Fascination with violence? Check. Obsessively reading about real murders? Check. Building a mental catalog of how they did it? Check. It's literally the starter pack for half the Netflix psychopaths. Look, we're not saying you're 2 clicks away from becoming the next Bundy. But if your idea of self-care is a wine glass and a 5-part series on dismemberment, you're at least vibing on the same wavelength. Psychologists call this morbid curiosity. It's not bad in itself, but when it crosses into empathy for the killer or detachment from the victims, that's where the red flags start waving like they're at a Formula One race. Animal lover turned animal harmer. Of course, most kids used to cry when Bambi's mom died. We love animals like they're furry soulmates. But here's the thing. Some of the most notorious serial killers also started that way, until one day they didn't. Animal cruelty isn't just messed up, it's textbook, like literal textbook. It's part of the McDonald triad, aka the serial killer starter pack, alongside fire starting and bedwetting. But the animal harm part is basically the gateway drug. They go from I love puppies to I wonder what happens if I drown one disturbingly fast. To outsiders, it might look like a phase. Boys will be boys, or he's just curious. Until that curiosity escalates from pulling wings off flies to burying the neighbor's cat. Repeated animal abuse is one of the clearest warning signs of a future violent offender. This is simply because animals are easy targets, they can't fight back, and for budding psychopaths, that's the perfect warm-up act. What makes it creepier is that some of them start with genuine love. They do care until something in their brain flips and that care turns into control and then into cruelty. It's not about the animal anymore, it's about power. Collection hobbies, especially macabre ones. Some people collect stamps, others collect Funko Pops, and then there's the dude whose bookshelf is full of vintage embalming tools and Victorian death masks. See, collecting stuff is usually harmless. It's comforting, nostalgic, even therapeutic. But when the collection starts leaning towards the macabre, like serial killer fan art, antique weapons, or jars that might have held human teeth, it's worth reevaluating your hobbies. Serial killers often have obsessions, and those obsessions tend to lead into what they hoard. It's not just about liking dark stuff, but about fixating on control, power, and death. Some collect trophies from victims like locks of hair, ID cards, and bones, while others go for symbols, mannequins, dolls, or anatomical models they can project fantasies onto. Just know, these aren't collections, but shrines. They'll even often explain it away by claiming it's historical, or just that they're really into true crime. And even though not every odd collector is a killer, when someone's house feels more like a horror museum curated by someone too enthusiastic about taxidermy, maybe check the basement. Or leave. Frequent job hopping. While most people switch jobs to grow or escape a toxic workplace, some people bounce around because they can't stay anywhere too long because they're impulsive, manipulative, or actively hiding bodies in the crawl space. Serial killers often struggle with authority, routine, or even basic human interaction, so they quit or get fired a lot, which means their resumes look less like a career ladder and more like a crime scene timetable. Take Ted Bundy. He worked at a suicide hotline. Ed Kemper worked as a state highway worker. And don't forget Richard Ramirez. He was a hotel drifter who used access to commit brutal crimes. These guys didn't just hate 9-to-5s, they used their job hopping as cover. Now, obviously, not everyone who changes jobs a lot is planning their own true crime documentary. But when someone's constantly ghosting jobs with zero explanation, that's not just a bad work ethic. Sometimes it's a pattern of instability. Or worse, it's a mask that blends into society just long enough to strike again. Obsessive note-taking or journaling. Once again, I'm going to mention that serial killers love control. They really, really need it. Which is why obsessive note-taking is not just self-reflection, but self-obsession. Think about it. Being in control means you can also control the narrative, and obsessively taking notes of every moment, every thought, every tiny inconvenience is just another subtle sign. In fact, most serial killers had journals where they documented their crimes like a museum exhibit. Some kept journals where they outlined their fantasies before acting on them. Others rated their own murders like they were giving themselves Yelp reviews. BTK literally gave himself his own creepy little brand name and mailed it to the police. This isn't just, "Dear Diary, I felt weird today." It's more like, "Dear Diary, I planned out every move and now I'm reliving it in glorious detail." The writing becomes part of the ritual, a way to rehearse the violence, relive the power, and reshape the story so they're always the main character. Normal journaling helps people process. Obsessive journaling, especially when it's secretive, controwing, and dark, can be a red flag, especially when the notebook sounds less like a therapy tool and more like an unedited confession. Night owls with no explanation. There's staying up late because you're stressed. There's staying up because you're addicted to your phone. And then there's the 3 a.m. lurker who sits in complete darkness with no TV, no music, just there, like their soul forgot how to power down. They say night owls are creative, but you know who else stays up when the world sleeps? People who are planning things that need to be done in secret. Historically, some serial offenders have been notorious night dwellers because it's quiet, there's less traffic, and mostly no witnesses. The brain, untethered by sunlight or social norms, starts wandering into some very dark places. Now, we're not saying every nocturnal human is plotting a body count. But if someone's awake at 2 a.m. every night doing nothing with no reason, no job, no visible signs of caffeine addiction, that's not just I'm a night person, that's suspiciously voidcore. Fake charm or overly polite. Ever met someone so charming it felt off? Like their smile shows all 32 teeth, but somehow none of them feel friendly? It's not just your social anxiety playing games. Sometimes overly polite behavior isn't sweet, it's sinister. Serial killers don't usually show up looking like villains from a horror movie. Nope, they show up offering to carry your groceries and say ma'am a lot, because fake charm is one of their best tools. Take Ted Bundy. Dude had dimples, a clean haircut, and a law school smile. He held doors open, spoke like a gentleman, and asked for help loading his car. You know, right before doing the exact opposite of what nice people do. See, some people use charm like social camouflage. It's not about kindness, but a strategy. They mimic empathy, politeness, and friendliness the way an actor memorizes lines. Not because they feel it, but because they know you do. Fixated on control and power, even in small ways. There are people who always have to pick the restaurant, choose the menu, or completely lose it if their routine changes by 5 minutes. Yeah, annoying, sure, but sometimes that obsession with control isn't just type A energy, it's the tip of something way darker. Control is comforting. For most people, it's about calming chaos. But for certain minds, control becomes a drug, and not just the chill kind. It mostly starts with small things like dictating dinner plans, micromanaging someone's schedule, rewriting the group chat rules because no one's following the emoji code. But underneath that, there's a need to dominate, manipulate, and be the one pulling every string. Serial killers tend to be Olympic-level control freaks. For them, it's about power and about playing God in someone else's life. Many people don't kill on impulse. They plan. They stalk, they rehearse, because the real high isn't the act, it's the control leading up to it. Fascination with fire. Fire is cool. I mean, it's literally the first special effect in human history. But while most kids go through a fire is neat phase, for some, that spark becomes an obsession. We're talking full-blown Firebug mode. The technical term here is pyromania, an impulse control disorder where someone feels compelled to start fires, not for money, not for revenge, just because their brain lights up like a matchstick when something burns. This isn't just your average pyro fascination. Serial killers like David Berkowitz, aka the Son of Sam, and Carl Panzram were known fire starters long before they became headline makers. For some, setting fires is like therapy. Horrible, illegal therapy. It gives them a sense of control in a world where they feel powerless. They light a match and suddenly, they're in charge. Destruction becomes a coping mechanism, and when that doesn't satisfy them anymore, they escalate. That's why fire setting is part of the infamous McDonald triad, a trio of childhood behaviors that's bedwetting, cruelty to animals, and fire setting often linked to future violent tendencies. It's not a guarantee someone will grow up to be dangerous, but when a kid's favorite hobby is arson, yeah, maybe keep an eye on them. History of head injuries. It usually starts with something casual. Oh yeah, I fell off the top bunk when I was 7, or got hit in the head with a baseball, haha! Sounds harmless, right? Like a weird childhood badge of honor. But what if I told you that a lot of people who later become serial killers had stories that started that exact same way? We're not saying every kid with a concussion grows up to star in a Netflix doc. But the link between early head trauma and violent behavior, it's not just a creepy coincidence, it's neuroscience. Specifically, trauma to the frontal lobe, which is the part of your brain responsible for impulse control, empathy, and knowing that murder is, bad. Think about Richard Ramirez, who got knocked out cold by a swing, or John Wayne Gacy, who had blackouts from repeated injuries. These weren't one-time bumps, but were brain-altering hits during critical developmental years. And those changes can mess with aggression regulation and moral judgment in terrifying ways. It's not that the head injury causes evil, it's that it lowers the brakes on behavior that was already risky. Add in childhood trauma, neglect, or antisocial tendencies, and you're already building a psychological cocktail with a body count. Overly normal. You know that one neighbor who's always mowing the lawn at exactly 9 a.m., waves like a politician running for local council, and brings store-bought cookies to every neighborhood watch meeting? Yeah, sometimes the guy who seems the most normal is actually rehearsing it. Some serial killers don't just blend in, they overdo it. They curate their personalities like an Instagram feed. Friendly, polite, aggressively average. Think about Dennis Rader, aka BTK, church leader, Cub Scout dad, code enforcement officer, also murdered 10 people and kept detailed notes like a psychopath with a stationery fetish. This hyper-normal mask isn't just for funsies, it's actually strategy. They want zero suspicion, so they become what everyone trusts. Friendly, predictable, almost boring. Except underneath that Mr. Rogers sweater might be a kill kit. The truth is, a lot of us mistake normal behavior for safe behavior. We assume serial killers are twitchy loners with creepy stares and basement vibes. But real predators know that spookiness is bad for business. So instead, they lean hard into the nice guy branding. They're the ones who offer to walk you to your car or fix your sink for free. And yeah, sometimes it's just a kind person. Other times it's Ted Bundy with a fake cast. So no, this isn't a call to distrust every guy who holds the door open. But if someone seems too polished, too charming, and makes being normal feel like a performance, your gut might be picking up on something your brain hasn't caught yet. Weird obsession with police or military stuff. Ever met someone weirdly obsessed with police scanners, night vision goggles, and tactical boots, and they don't even work in law enforcement? Like, bro, why do you own 12 pairs of handcuffs and a full riot vest when your day job is data entry? On the surface, this can look like a quirky interest or them just really liking order and authority. But sometimes the truth is way more disturbing. I mean, if you think about it, a lot of serial killers don't just like military or police stuff, they use it. BTK literally handed out fake citations. John Wayne Gacy pretended to be a cop to lure victims. Others collected gear like Pokemon cards, batons, badges, radios, even uniforms. Anything that gave them a taste of power they weren't actually given. It's not the gear itself, it's what it represents. Obsession with command, obsession with obedience, obsession with having the upper hand. If someone starts using phrases like maintaining order when they're talking about their neighbors, maybe run. Apathy toward pain. One kid falls off a bike. He scrapes his knee, there's crying, wailing, the usual. But one just sits there, staring at the blood like it's a science experiment. There's no crying or panic, just curiosity. Everyone claps them on the back. Ah, tough little guy. But behind that dead calm expression, there is a brain that might not be processing pain the way it's supposed to. Because here's the thing, feeling pain, physical or emotional, is one of the ways our brains remind us that we're alive. When someone doesn't react not to their own injuries and not to others' suffering, that's not resilience, that's a possible warning sign. Psychologists call it pain apathy. And while it can show up in trauma survivors or people with certain neurological differences, it also shows up in a scarier category, people with highly callous, unemotional traits. Basically, serial killer starter pack material. They're not trying to be brave, they just genuinely don't feel what the rest of us do. Or worse, they do, and they don't care. Many notorious killers showed this behavior long before their crimes. They didn't flinch when hurt, didn't blink at violence. Some even sought it out, not because they were angry, because they were interested.